Hello, today I'm going to be talking about something called post-orgasmic illness syndrome. I received a really nice comment by someone sort of sharing that he liked the video sort of thing. He's got some respect and gratitude for me creating these videos, and he wanted to ask a bit about post-orgasmic illness syndrome. So I thought, well, that was a nice comment. Let me reply to this guy for sure. So yeah, cheers again, by the way, for the comment. I do really appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me because we do post a lot of these videos, and it's nice for them to be received in a good way. It's good to get some feedback, and this question could hopefully help out a lot of people with post-orgasmic illness syndrome. And this kind of came about because in 2023, just before I'd met my own mentor who taught me how to overcome this problem and many other problems when it comes to sex and porn addiction and being in control of my own choices, my mentor, Mary POIS. Just before I'd met her, it was honestly like maybe a few weeks before she actually taught me the Beyond Compulsion method, and I basically changed my YouTube channel and everything to Beyond Compulsion Academy. I'd made a video talking about post-orgasmic illness syndrome and my experience with it. And it was like this new phenomenon that I'd just come across when I was in the porn addiction. And I was on a long streak at the time. I was doing really, really well with abstaining from masturbation. However, I wasn't actually fully free from the porn addiction. I didn't really know how to deal with compulsive desires, and I was just on a streak. I was just another guy doing nofap on a long streak, right? Searching for answers online, going everywhere I could to try and find a solution. How do I stop watching porn? How do I stop masturbating for good? How do I solve this issue in my life that is causing so much misery, pain, shame, and just frustration? So I was one of the millions on that mission, going down the rabbit hole of information online, and I'd read loads of books, and I'd come across post-orgasmic illness syndrome, and I really resonated with the symptoms involved here. I felt like after masturbating and orgasming, whether it was from sex or from porn, I'd feel very weak, I'd feel very lethargic, I'd kind of feel like the life force energy, the vibrancy in me, the colour in my life was like zapped out of me. Everything felt a bit more grey. I'd even feel physically ill at times. I'd be like blowing my nose, I'd like be shivering and honestly cold. I remember being on holiday for a week in Kavos, and I was deep in the porn addiction at this point in time. I had a girlfriend, and I'd even like cheated on her and had erectile dysfunction. Like everything was just a mess, like mentally. But I'd kind of denied that I was in this addiction. I wasn't really aware of it. I wasn't taking it seriously, and I was there having a lot of fun with friends. And I remember it was outside, and it was like 30 degrees Celsius every day, like really, really hot. And all my mates are in like shorts and a t-shirt, like sweating, and I'm there like shivering cold. And at the time, I was still masturbating. I was still in the porn addiction. I was in a bad place. And I didn't feel like I was ill necessarily. It felt different. And I couldn't really describe what it was until I came across this POIS. And so things started to make a lot more sense. And, as this guy says in his comment, he says, I watched a clip where you discussed discovering the syndrome and mentioned that understanding it gave you greater clarity regarding your goals. Your words are encouraging, but I'd love to understand your personal situation with POIS more clearly. Now, here's the interesting thing. Since working with Mary POIS and understanding the Beyond Compulsion method in a lot of depth, understanding these different parts in the mind, getting really, really clear on things like unanswerable questions, which I'm going to talk about a bit more in this video, I no longer ever even have the thought about POIS. Honestly, it never comes into my mind. Haven't thought about this for years, really, and that's why I've not made a video on it since November 2023. So why is that? Why am I no longer even thinking about this post-orgasmic illness syndrome? It's because my neural pathways have really changed. I no longer struggle with porn addiction, and I know exactly what to do at all times. And the way in which I see the whole problem has transformed as well. I actually see a lot of the symptoms of this POIS as symptoms of struggling to deal with compulsive desires rather than this like autoimmune deficiency or problem or autoimmune problem. I don't really know like much about POIS, to be straight. I've not actually looked into it for years, as I say, so I might even be getting the terminology wrong there, but I no longer think about this thing. And what follows, and look, I want to, say thank you again to this guy for commenting, but I'm going to have to politely disengage from basically all these questions, because if I choose to engage in these questions, I know that it gives the addicted part of the mind the opportunity to sort of spin me into a vortex of helplessness, of feeling like I don't really understand something, feeling perhaps, like just a bit confused, really. This is what happens with unanswerable questions. So I'm going to read the questions out, but then I'm going to choose to very actively disengage. And this is going to be something which really makes sense to clients, and I'll try and make it make sense to you if you're not a Beyond Compulsion Academy client right now. So here's the questions. Do you experience symptoms from wet dreams, nocturnal emissions, which happens in 95% of POIS cases? Do you get symptoms from sex as well? Did you used to get symptoms from any form of ejaculation in general? If so, has any of this changed now? What exactly were your symptoms like? Do they still persist? And all of these questions, to me, they are totally unanswerable. And I tried to answer them at first. I honestly recorded this video like 10 minutes ago, tried to answer these, and I couldn't give a definitive answer to any of these questions, because in my mind now, I'm just so clear on knowing that there's only really one question that I need to answer to have freedom really from POIS, incidentally, but also have freedom from compulsivity and compulsive thinking. And the only question I need to ask myself is this: what am I choosing to do and why? Because this might sound crazy, but it just is obviously true. We're always choosing something in our life, right? We're always choosing something. And so what happens is when you're in the addiction, and we'll get onto an unanswerable question soon as well. What happens in an addiction is the addicted part of the mind is always looking to sort of get you away from your choice and what am I choosing to do and why, and that reality that you are always choosing something. It's always trying to get you out of that and away from the present moment. And very, very few people in the addiction recovery world or compulsivity recovery world, whatever you want to call it, really see how powerful and important it is to understand that you have choices in the present moment. And the moment you get out of the present moment mentally and you start thinking into the future or into the past, or think about symptoms or anything outside of simply what are you choosing to do and why in this present moment, based on the big picture in terms of like, how do you want to be, like how do you want your life to be? The moment you get away from that, you lose your power. Like you lose the choice that you have, because we have no control over the past. We have no control over the future. And what I'm saying here is probably going to, maybe even annoy some people, because it's so unconventional to go, hang on, the problem that, is in this YouTube comment isn't even the problem that the person thinks the problem is. It's like, you've got to understand the problem first to solve a problem. And by disengaging from this, I'm actually helping someone get one step closer to like the freedom that they're actually looking for, like the peace of mind that they actually want. If I choose to engage in this, I'm going to go around in circles, because I can't answer these questions, and that's okay. You don't have to answer every question that someone, asks you. And the addicted part of the mind wants to jump in. It wants you to answer it. That's very, very compelling, because it can be kind of exciting to go down that rabbit hole of exploration and that deep dive into understanding, and you can get quite philosophical about some questions and maybe scientific at times, or you can try and really resonate and feel that deep connection with someone else by sharing an experience with them. But here's the truth: none of these questions are going to get me or anyone listening to the place that they want to get to, because if you are struggling with behaviour in your life, then all we need to do is stop that behaviour. And so if there are symptoms in your life from engaging in a behaviour, and you're pissed off with those symptoms and it's ruining your life, all you need to do is stop the behaviour that leads to the symptoms. And here's the thing with my life now: I have sex from time to time, okay? And I don't really have any of the symptoms that I once had. What you can have is the addicted part of the mind will try and get you questioning it, and you may feel perhaps a little bit more tired after sex. Potentially you may feel a little bit more lethargic after sex. But if you then go to your script instead of like overthinking those potential symptoms as such, and you think through, okay, well, what am I choosing to do and why at this moment, and you start to rewire that neural pathway, what you see is that even questioning those symptoms is just the addictive part of the mind trying to get you into helplessness, because that's his strategy. So there's these different parts in the mind. You've got the addictive part of the mind, you've got the rational part of the mind, you've got the child self. The rational part of the mind wants to stop engaging in the behaviour. Addictive part of the mind wants you to engage in the behaviour. The addictive part of the mind will do whatever it can to make you feel like you don't know, and you're like clueless and you're helpless, and it goes and looks in all these different places for information that can validate engaging in the behaviour in some way, or get you away from simply your choice, which is what you're choosing to do and why in the moment based on the big picture. And the unanswerable questions are an incredible ploy that get people feeling uncertain. And one unanswerable question leads to another and another and another. And our strategy within the Beyond Compulsion Academy, my method for dealing with the addictive part of the mind, is to very actively, and this is actually a choice as well, to disengage from the question and then go to a script. Think through my choice in that moment. And it is in that moment, it's right now, right here. And then you make a rational decision and move on with your life. And that's how you get to a position where you have complete clarity, peace of mind, and understand these different parts of the mind, the different strategies. Now, the script is a tool to really think through that choice and rewire that neural pathway. And that's kind of why I've disengaged from these questions, is because if I answer them, I'm just doing what the addictive part of the mind would want me to do. And there's a lot more to all of this. So if this isn't making sense, then, you know, all I can really say is maybe go join the Beyond Compulsion Academy, because that's where you're going to get the understanding of everything I'm saying here. Like, Beyond Compulsion Academy members will know exactly what I'm on about, and will say, yeah, like, I understand where unanswerable questions get me, because anyone who really gets unanswerable questions and has these inner awareness in their minds can start to see them and realize that they only really lead to relapse long term, because they're just so far away from the present moment and your choice. And the problem isn't even to do with really like the symptoms, it's to do with compulsive desire and that wanting. The symptoms are just the byproduct of the inability to deal with compulsive desires and think through choices rationally in the present moment. Hopefully this makes some sense. It's a lot. It's quite hard to explain at times, but once you get it, you get it. So what would I do if I thought I had POIS right now? I would learn how to deal with compulsive desires and be in control of every choice in my life. So you no longer have to even think about POIS as the thing, because really it's just another symptom of compulsive desire and the inability to make rational choices. So yeah, that's what I would do, is I'd learn how to stop engaging in behaviours I want to stop. That's all you really need to do, and you'll realise that you can actually rewire the brain and basically completely get out of the whole problem entirely. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right, cheers. Hopefully that makes some sense. Thank you for listening. Apologies if it doesn't make sense, but I've tried my best, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.